Hello and welcome to the Thursday show on Our Game. Michael Verdi in the hot seat today. The Saint is taking a well-earned break. Delighted to be joined by Jason Byrne of the Irish Sun. I'll just get rid of this brilliant rock music, Jason, and introduce you. How are you?
Good, Mike. How's things?
Good. Busy GA weekend again. Getting up, it's mad. We're getting up towards Christmas and we're still previewing loads of big club games. And we're even going to have, obviously, the All-Ireland Club Hurling semi-finals the weekend before Christmas. And I suppose that's a good place to start. What do you think of the Soccer World Cup final being on that Sunday and the GA knowing well in advance that it's on that Sunday? And them fixing two All-Ireland Club Hurling semi-finals, and particularly, to me, the biggest club hurling game in many's a year on the same time as the soccer final.
Yeah, it's a mad one, Mick, to be honest. Like, everyone's looking forward to this hurling game so much. It's obviously a repeat of the classic All-Ireland final we had earlier in the year, which, a lot of people say is last year, but of course it was back in February and all that Valentine's Day heartbreak for Ballyhale. But, like, it's, I think it's a daft move from the GA, being honest. The hurling purists will be at Croke Park and they'll be tuning in watching the hurling on TV or whatever. But, like, the GA aren't trying to take on the World Cup here, but I think it was just something that could have been avoided. I think the World Cup final kicks off at 3:00 and then the game at Croker kicks off at 3:30. So there's not really much leeway for enjoying both games comfortably. I just think it was a wrong move. Like, I remember, like, Donegal playing an Ulster Championship game in 2002 when Ireland were in a last 16 game against Spain, and the game had gone to penalties by the time the game threw in, and I think that game was on a Clonus against Derry. And, like, I know a handful of people who went to Clonus and they said it was just so eerie, like, and there wasn't really much focus on what was happening in Clonus at the time. Of course, Donegal's Shay Gibbon wasn't goals that day, and there's been other clashes here and there. I can remember in 2016, I think Kildare were playing Westmeath at Croke Park when Ireland were playing France in the last 16 of the Euros. And I remember being in the media centre at Croker watching it, like, and the soccer was on the big screens in Croke Park as well. So, but, like, there was nobody in the stadium bar the Seagulls as the teams were doing their warm-ups. Like, so it was a very, very strange day. It was definitely something that could have been avoided and probably should have been avoided, in my own opinion, Mick. But, like, we're in for a great hurling game either way, and what's going on out in Qatar won't impact that. But, at this time of year when people have been moaning about elite games taking place and, the inter-county being finished in July and everything else, this is the most elite game we're going to have since the All-Ireland finished. And the fact that it's clashing with such a major global event is a real shame, in my opinion.
I'm not saying that we need to bow to other codes or anything like that. I just think it stands to reason. Like, you're a soccer fan. I'm not a big soccer fan at all, to be honest, but I'd like to probably watch the final as well. I wouldn't, but I'm not going to be able to now, and I probably won't remember in 20 years' time who won the 2022 Soccer World Cup, because I won't have seen it, because I'll definitely be watching Ballyhale and Ballygunner, and the people from those two parishes will be there at the game or watching the game. But I think it's the bigger picture. I know Richard Hogan says here, Kilkenny v Offaly for Italia 90. I think Ireland were playing Egypt at the time in one of the worst games in World Cup history, but it was only like Offaly beat Kilkenny that day, and I think there was the guts of about, I think it was 9,000 in Croke Park for, a brilliant Offaly performance, and one that's probably forgotten maybe as a result of that as well. So, like, I don't know. I just think I don't think we need to bow to other sports or anything like that. And I know we're not in the World Cup, but I just think someone actually suggested to me that they could have played the games, the two semi-finals at the same time, even in different venues, and put one of them live on TG Catter and put one of them live on the TG Catter YouTube or something like that. And it's a funny one as well, because the All-Ireland finals aren't until mid to late January, so there's almost like a rush with getting these All-Ireland semi-finals played before Christmas as well. So it strikes me as strange, to be honest, and we're probably shooting ourselves in the foot when we have such a good, particularly that Ballygunner Ballyhale semi-final. Like, there's Needle in that. There's Needle from last February. There's even Needle from Colin Fennelly's comments saying about how he kind of took Barry Coughlin's speech even personal, and he said it maybe there was a bit of a lack of respect. So I think I've been kind of saying it's not often there's club games will get the coverage of an inter-county game or the build-up of an inter-county game, but I think this will, and I just think we're shooting ourselves in the foot a small bit.
Yeah, definitely. And when it comes to the neutral as well, Mick, like if there was lads scotching around Dublin there on Sunday, like, they could have easily tipped into Croke Park for this game, or, even just tuned in for it on the TV. But I think, a lot of the middle ground, just general sports fans are going to be tuning into the World Cup final. That's just how I see it. And
yeah, you're definitely losing a big casual audience. Just something else I wanted to chat to you about, Jason. A couple of potential rule changes coming down around the corner here. So the GA is looking to trial a kick out that must clear the 45-metre line. I think they're going to trial it in third level freshers football. What are your initial thoughts there? My thoughts are, I think kickouts are fascinating in football now. That they have to go obviously a little bit further. They have to go outside that arc, and you can't go backwards obviously now, and even you can't give it back to the keeper now. I think it's like almost like real kamikaze stuff, looking at inter-county games big, and when there's a press on, it's fascinating because if they're able to get over the press, it could be a goal at the far end. It also leads to probably keepers having to put the ball through an eye of a needle and mistakes. And we talk about Kilcoo and the Glen this weekend. That game was decided in extra time last year on, I wouldn't say a mistake, but somebody waiting for a short kick out, and they ended up steaming in. But like, is there any need to be tweaking this a bit more now? I actually find it quite entertaining the way it is at the moment.
Yeah, like I think it was nearly best summed up. Like, I know the rules are slightly different, but in ladies football, when we had the All-Ireland semi-final between Donegal and Meath, like the press that Donegal were putting on was outrageous, and Meath were having to come up with all sorts of different ideas to beat that press in such a high-pressure game in Croke Park with the clock, ticking down big time. I think the kickouts were evolving again naturally anyway, with those little tweaks that you've already mentioned. I saw Kieran McKeever on Twitter, going on about like, sure, teams can just flood the middle third with 11, 12 players and, just try and nullify it that way. Like, teams will always come up with something. They'll come up with something, some way to get around this. Like, and, do you counteract the rule then with something else that only X amount of players are allowed to stand between the 245s in that middle sector? Like, I don't know. Like, look, I'm open to anything being trialed. It's worth a shot, see how it works out. I don't think they've, specified too much when it's actually going to come into effect in these fresher football competitions. Like, and
I'm hoping, Jason, that it's a trial and a trial only, just to see. Like,
yeah.
But like, do you not think it's a bit bizarre that I don't know anybody that's for the attacking mark? I swear to God, anyone I've spoken to, I don't know anyone who's been like, oh, I love the attacking mark. I think it adds a lot to the game, and yet, they're going looking at other things. Like, to me, like, and Andrew Sullivan says it here, one of our regular viewers, just says too many changes in football the past few years, and there has been a lot of changes. Some for the better, some that I think are needless as well. And I'd be like you, I'm all for change if I think if it's gonna make it better. But I do think football has been changed an awful lot. I'm thankful that hurling hasn't been looked at maybe in the same light as well too much yet. And I'd be afraid if they start changing, because they could ruin it if they change it too much. But I don't know, like, I just think there's rules in the game that they could be taken out rather than adding in, making it even more convoluted, if you get me.
Yeah, like, it seems like there's some sort of a knee-jerk reaction here to maybe a lot of the defensive tactics that have blighted football for a long time. But I think that's been coming back around lately. Like, some certain teams have been sticking rigidly to those defensive approaches, but like, it just seems like a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to be introducing something like this. Trial it by all means, see how it goes, but I can't see something like that as being the answer to improving the game. You mentioned the attacking mark there. Like, I think the only person I've heard recently speaking in favour of it was Stefan Okunber, the Kerry player, of course, spent plenty of time in Australia. So, that's probably purely from his personal point of view that it would definitely suit, something like that would definitely suit his game. But, I can't see a place for the attacking mark either. So, like, there are other rules that could certainly be removed and done away with to improve the game as a spectacle and make it more entertaining for the man on the stand. But I don't know about this one, Mick. Like, it'd be interesting to see it in action, all right. But again, I can just see teams coming up with some sort of a solution to counteract it, whether that be just flooding everybody to the middle when a goalkeeper has to take a kick out, or I don't know. I do think maybe something should be looked at in a year or two. If it's just a personal point of view, I don't like the way keepers are kind of running out now with the ball and stuff like that. And we've seen a few lads being caught out badly with that this year as well in high-profile games. Like, what happened with Derry when Damien Comer scored that wonderful goal in Croke Park. And it's happened with Kilmacud Crokes in the Dublin Championship as well. Or, sorry, was it against Naas, actually, in Leinster in Parnell Park. So, I think...
You want keepers to stay on their line, basically.
That's it, yeah. As a former forward, Mick, I want to give him a chance. Do you know what I mean? But I think this running out all the time, I don't see the point in it.
Okay, interesting. There's a couple of other changes that I actually would be for. There's another rule here says it also wants they want to explore the impact that banning a mark free or sideline from going backwards unless it's taken within an opponent's 20-meter line. I suppose that's to try and encourage more offensive or attacking plays. And there's also they're mooting one as well. On the back of Evan Comerford shaking the goalpost this year when Sean O'Shea was taking a free, and I think he might have been shaking it even in the canal end before that. So if it's clear that Congress, referees will now be allowed to order a retake of the free, mark or sideline in that case if someone is shaking the post, because it was perfectly okay to do so, which sounds a bit mad really, that you can just shake a post and put someone off. Because even in hurling, you'd often have a hurl up and we'll be wagging a hurl in front of someone for a free, and you actually have to keep it. You have to keep it kind of stationary, or keep it in the one spot. Jason, I know Donegal is probably still reeling, and you are as a Donegal supporter and a Killybegs native. Just talk to me about Michael Murphy retiring. Is there probably still a bit of a shock up in Donegal? And then just talk to me a bit about his legacy. It's obviously a decade since the great All-Ireland win, only your second one. I don't know if it's something that you only like winning All-Irelands ending in the number 2 or what, I'm not sure. But just talk to me. Yeah. Well, listen, you take another one in 10 years' time. Just talk to me about the general mood around Donegal as a result of that. I'd imagine it was a bit deflating even before the season starts. And then just talk to me about the legend of Michael Murphy.
Yeah, like I spent a week up at home there, Mick, and everyone I spoke to was mentioning Michael Murphy. Everybody. And there's still a huge sense of house private about the whole thing. Everyone's kind of still shocked and saddened by the whole thing, but it definitely blindsided me. I was absolutely stunned when I read the news. He was obviously biding his time. He's a genuine guy. If he said his body's not up to it anymore and he can't feel that he can give what he was able to give for so many years anymore, then the best of luck to him. In terms of his legacy, he's definitely the best we've ever had. He's our GOAT. He's our greatest of all time, hands down. Coming on to the scene so young in 2007, I think it was, under Brian McIver in a qualifier game against Leitrim. The man-child, as Joe Brawley loved to call him. And, he was made captain in 2011 when Jim McGuinness took the job and they won that first Leinster title in 19 years. And, what he done in 2012, that iconic goal against Mayo in the final, just in the 3rd minute of the game, it's that even wasn't Donegal's best performance that summer. I would rank the Cork semi-final win as their best performance, but that goal was just the platform for him climbing the steps of the Hogan stand. And I'm sure he has regrets as well. A lot of people in Donegal think the 2014 final will definitely be one that got away against Kerry, and they were kind of outsmarted by him in Fitzmaurice after the high of beating Dublin and Jim Gavin's only championship defeat as Dublin manager. So there'll be plenty of regrets along the way as well. That Cavan defeat in the Ulster final in 2020 behind closed doors in Armagh. There was a couple of real sliding doors moments as well. Like, Tyrone won the All-Ireland last year and you had that qualifier game in Enniskillen where Michael misses a penalty and then he gets sent off and it's knockout football and Tyrone win, and then all of a sudden they're All-Ireland champions then at the end of the season. So, but for sure, plenty of highs. 5 Ulster titles when, God, I remember all those dark days going to Clonus through the 90s and just leaving in the car in tears. And Michael was that soldier himself as well. All those great players we had, like Brendan DeBenny and lads like that who never got their hands in championship silverware. And, Michael was just the driving force behind all of that. And, like, he's just, as a captain and a leader, his presence will be sorely, sorely missed. But there does seem to be a genuine belief that he will be back someday as manager. I know he was coaching his club minor team this year, and he's obviously over the Letterkenny IT college team as well. So, you know, he said as much in his farewell interviews and statements as well, that, you know, he will be back in the fold.
Me and you even have a private bet, Jason, about when he'll be the Donegal manager potentially.
That's right, Mick. I forgot about that. Yeah. What was it again? A tenner? Did you?
I think it was a tenner. I have 2028 or after, and I think you have before 2028. So it'd be interesting to see. It'd be interesting to see who comes out on top. But Jason, thanks a million for joining us. Really appreciate it. Actually, I have David Moran, Kerry Star on the line here, so I'm going to bring him in. Thanks a million, Jason.
No worries, mate.
David, how are you?
Good. Yourself?
Good, very good. David is obviously joining us ahead of the AIB Munster Club football final at the weekend. Kerins O'Reilly's playing against Newcastle West. I just wouldn't mind just piggybacking on what Jason was saying there, David. You've obviously come up against Michael Murphy during your own playing days, and obviously one of your finest days was in 2014 when you actually took down Donegal. But what would be your memories of him, and I suppose what type of a force of nature was he to come up against when you're playing against him and trying to stop him? I know he would have been out, maybe I'd say he was probably every throw-in you ever contested against Donegal, he was probably in around there.
Not sure. He was a fantastic footballer, fantastic leader. We first came across him, it was funny in hindsight. We played minor against him in 2006, and he would have been a year younger than us, and himself, he was marking Tommy Walsh midfield on the minor team. It was like the land of the giants. The two of them were men. I don't know how they qualified as minors, either of them. But since then, we've kind of obviously been up against each other for the best one. You know, so that's probably, you know, a long time. So no, he was a fantastic player. He was the one guy that was probably universally liked by everyone, every county. Huge respect. And then, you know, I was lucky enough, and when I went to Australia, with the international rules, he was there, and it was great to see him up close, and he's as impressive off the field as he is on the field, you know.
He was an absolute, like, he was funny there, you say he was a giant as a minor, like he was such, I think it was Joe Brawley did christen him the man-child. I remember even him playing Sigerson. He was a fully developed man almost at 18 or 19, like, and that's probably why it's very rare that lads can seamlessly fit in from minor to senior football, but he was someone that was able to.
And especially back then, because that was kind of pre the days where, well, certainly down here, it was pre the days where you have a gym program flat out from the minute you get in, really under 12s or whatever, you know, the S&C, you know, it just was a different era. You know, a lot of that time people were maybe a bit slower coming in the sense that when they came into the senior setup, took a couple of years to adjust because they hadn't the bank of strength conditioning. Where now a lot of the guys coming in, you know, I see some of the gym sessions and stuff that the Kerry minors and the Kerry 20s and stuff are doing, and it's so far ahead of what we would have been doing at the time, or what most people do in the country. I think it wasn't just a Kerry thing. I think it was just that was the times, you know.
Yeah. Did you ever, just to move back to the club for a minute, did you figure that you'd still be going at this time of the year? It was probably a hope more so than anything. But
I hope. I suppose you'd think you'd be there every year, but sure, we haven't been here in about 13 years or something like that. So, I suppose there's no idea. You go out every year thinking and hoping that you'll be there, but I know it is great now that we are. You know, so we're all looking forward to Saturday.
You were only a young fella, probably in college, I think, even at the time when you contested your last Munster final, 09, I think, was it?
Yeah. So I'd have been 21 or whatever. Yeah.
Was it a sort of case where you think these things are going to come around? The typical kind of young fella, when you get that success at an early age and think, oh, we'll be in one every couple of years, but it doesn't really work out like that, particularly down in Kerry.
Like, with Kerry, I probably would have been thinking that because I would have been, say, Kerry would have been won it in 2004. They were in the final in 2005. They won it in 06 when I was a minor. I was kind of drafted into the pen in 07, and they won it. Then we lost the final 08, and we won in 09. So in 09, it was the Kerry thing where I said, look, this is great, like, you know. And then all of a sudden, just a famine for a while, like, you know, whether the club, we won the county final in 2002. We hadn't been in a Munster club final before, you know, so it wasn't like the sense of expectation. Now, we had a very strong team. We thought that we lost the county final replay in 08, and then we got the Munster club final in 09, you know, so we thought we were going to contest more or maybe win a little bit more county level, but it wasn't. We didn't have the sense of as much of expectation of, you know, Sharks grand, we'd be here next year with the club, you know.
Do you try and put that message into the Kerry lads now, particularly the younger Kerry fellas that are after winning their first All-Ireland only a couple of months ago, that we can't get complacent, we have to kind of kick on. One is great, but we don't want to be looking back in 5 or 6 years time and thinking we only got one. Like, so you're trying to, you were the young fella back then, maybe not listening to the older fellas when they were saying that to you. So is it a bit of a role reversal now?
You kind of don't really have, not that you don't have to, but like say I had that experience after 2009, and then say the lads who won it in 2014 had that experience because they thought, oh, we're going to keep kicking on. And now the lads now, maybe the fact that they had won so many minors and it hadn't happened up to now, they don't take it for granted as much as someone who, if they had come straight in after winning the 5 or 4, whatever they won, the 4 or 5 minors in a row and won the senior, they would have said, so it's grand. But I'd say the fact that we found it hard to get over the line since all those great minors have come in probably means that they're not taking it for granted as much as maybe they might.
Just on the weekend in particular, like I think we've said it on the show, I think you were beaten by a cumulative of like 35 points, I think, in the Kerry Football Championship. Yeah. How did you manage to, I don't know, keep the train on tracks for the club championship when that came around then? Because it can be a difficult thing, be a bit of a demoralising kind of a thing, but you managed to keep the train on the tracks. I think it was Temple Noe you beat in the club final then. Was that a difficult thing? Was morale low at different stages?
Like the 35 points thing is a little bit false in the sense that the last game was the group stage where both teams were gone. They couldn't qualify. And like say, we had played maybe 7 or 8 games in about 8 or 10 weeks. So any fellow who had played a long season, none of us played in the game. So it wasn't like the East Kerry game, the Dingle game, where we were just well beaten by a better team. We were just, obviously we're missing Tommy, we're missing Clonberne, we're missing a few players which would have been key to us progressing or whatever for those games. And we come off the back of a hard club championship game where we were in the group of Crokes and Temple Noe and Stacks. So, we were probably a little bit fatigued, and then it just didn't go right for us. So then we had a month off after that game to get everybody back injury free, to get the form that we had going into the club championship, maybe 10 weeks before that, and kind of reset and, a bit of training, add a bit of fun back into things. I think they made a big difference.
It's a very interesting one, David, from the point of view of, I know Peter Cook was doing it with Mike Cullen. I know he's back home now. He was coming back from the States. I know Jason Lonergan did it with Clonmel. But you've 3 boys that are commuting a little bit longer maybe than most people would. I think it's Jack Savage, who I'm actually chatting to later on today. He's back from Dubai. He's Cormac Coffey in Dubai, and is it Gavin O'Brien then in New York. Yeah, that's fair mileage to be clocking up and coming back to play club games. But they were all, I think they contributed 7 points out of the 1-9 the last day.
They did, yeah. They played very well in fairness to them, So, but look, I'd say in fairness to the guys, these are kind of games that we bursted to come home for. Like Gavin, I think he only came home for the last game. He was home for the rest of them. Jack, obviously, and Cormac were over there a little bit longer. They went over, at the end of the summer and stuff. So, yeah, look, it's a big commitment for the lads, but I'm sure, and Jack will probably reiterate this later, that, these are the kind of games you'd only be bursted to come home for,
Yeah, very true. Yeah, very true. From your own point of view, what's going through your head when you're standing on the sideline for too much of the game? I'd say the last day. Yeah. It's a horrible kind of position to be in, because you kind of feel a bit helpless. And I'd imagine when Aero got it back to a point and you're thinking the momentum is with them, you're kind of there's probably all sorts going through your head.
Yeah, I suppose you're just thinking, is there any way I can help the lads and try and dig this out? You're just kind of going through, like, is there anything I can do? Is there anything I can say? Like, obviously, you're not going to go back on. So that's all I was trying to do. I was just basically thinking, is there anything I can do here now until the final whistle? Is there anything at all I could do, to help? But just glad lads dug it out, thankfully.
You're kind of restricted as well once you're sent off. Like, you can't exactly be going up and down the line or anything like that. I think you had a bib on the sideline. You literally have to stay in the one spot nearly, do you?
Yeah. Like, you can't. Can't be the runner or whatever the thing is. But that's the way it is. It was disappointing, but sure, look, I'm glad just look at that it didn't matter the result, and that I'm not suspended anyway for the final.
Can you talk to me about what the last 12 months have been like for you? I think it was around December time you picked up that groin injury. You probably were maybe a bit unsure of your future at the time. It's been a mad kind of a whirlwind of a year when you take in getting back with Kerry, All-Ireland success, and now a Munster final. It's a crazy kind of 12 months. Yeah,
I suppose we had a very disappointing finish to the year with Kerry last year. A lot of the season was very good, and into the way we went out in the manner of it was very disappointing. And then to go on a very good club run in the county championship and get to the final was brilliant. And then we did 2 Tralee teams, so that was, you know, really exciting time here in town. And then obviously final didn't go well. I was injured straight away, and you know, since then I had a lot of rehab and get back, and we did a brilliant year with Kerry. It was a different year for me in the sense that, like, you know, it was you know, you really got young guys driving it on. It was their team, you know, and I was really enjoying being part of that. You know, and lending whatever small bit of help I could, and you know, obviously just trying to play as well as I could. And then, you know, to come in then and keep it going with Kerry, or with my club. And so it's been a brilliant year since for the calendar year 2022. Obviously we're a little bit disappointed before last year, but yeah, it's been great. It doesn't feel like it's been a long year really, because you know we've been winning. But I suppose, look, at the end they were in a final on Saturday, and that's all I'm focused on now, as opposed to looking back.
Did the injury kind of give you a bit of time out maybe that you needed as well after having a kind of a long season last year? Like, maybe it's wrong to say, but was it a blessing in disguise in some way? Did it get you re-energized, refreshed, and not necessarily hungry for it again, but you probably missed a good bit of training and were able to come back in at a nice time? For an older player, it is probably maybe a better run to have.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, if you take time out, well, for me anyway, if you take time out, just if I, like, say I didn't come back into the league final, so if I just taken time out and try and train on my own to keep fit, well, then you're kind of saying, you know, am I doing enough, or am I still, the lads are ahead of me, where am I at the pecking order? And then if you go back in, you're saying at this stage, well, am I going to stay injury free? Am I going to last a year? This kind of stuff. Whether you're injured, you have no kind of mental baggage like that. It's just, you just have to go do your rehab program, and you have no choice. Do you know what I mean? So it was probably easier mentally that way, that I just literally was in the Kerry setup, but I obviously wasn't on the field for a long time, just doing your rehab, and you know, under the, you know, really, really good medics and strength conditioning guys. You know, and look, thankfully it worked out.
What the lads often say, one of Jack O'Connor's best attributes is his man management. Did you find that with him? You were obviously injured when you came to him, but he obviously managed you quite well as well.
Yeah. Like, he's a real, you know, he's the bigger picture. And like, Jack was our club manager in 2008, and he was the Kerry manager while I was there. You know, so I knew Jack probably better than a lot of the lads, even though they were played minor under him, because I'd known him for years. So it wasn't like I was coming in, meeting someone I never knew before, trying to build a new relationship. Like, he knew me, I knew him. So it was probably easier in that sense to work with, you know. But no, it's like the lads last year, and obviously Mike Quirk being on the management team as well, who's a very close friend of mine. You know, at no stage did I feel like, geez, the lads are against me or anything like that. It was, you know, it was good. They did anything. Now, I wanted to be part of it, and I was willing to do everything else. So it wasn't as if I was, you know, swimming against the tide or anything like that. But they were very accommodating, and you know, everything they did was very measured. And everything that generally is the case with Jack, he's very measured. It's, you know, he doesn't get, you know, too excited or too. He's very, very level, very cool all the time, really.
This is a bit of an off-the-wall question, but was it your stag party where the bomber nearly caused an international incident?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Can you just break down what exactly happened there? It sounds like great crack from afar, but I'd imagine maybe it wasn't that much crack.
At the time, I thought we were going to go get the plane was going to be turned around and go back to Cardiff. So we were on the way. We went to Cheltenham, the November meeting, and we flew back from Cardiff to Cork. And a friend of mine was just behind him, and we were chatting away, talking to him, and then all of a sudden was saying I think Bomber was sitting beside Kieran Donaghy, and one of the other lads was behind me, and they were just talking, say, what's there, or whatever. And then it was like, oh, Bomber did this, or, you know, he probably called him for some reason. And then, like, I think they came down and he was getting a coffee or something, and they were like, oh, we're not serving you now after what you said. And it was like, what are you on about? Do you know, what's the reason? He's like, look, you know what you said, the captain isn't happy, only that we're so far gone, we'd be turning on the plane. And we were like, Jesus, like, what's after happening here? Like, you know, so everyone was there, and all of a sudden, anyway, he was like, look, I genuinely have no idea what you're talking about. And then she said, look, you said Palmer or whatever. And he was like, and then it clicked, and he was like, I was calling him. So there was fierce Googling of Wikipedia pages of Bomber trying to explain, she's look, when the plane lands, you're going to be brought into the captain's cockpit. He's not happy and all this kind of stuff. But so eventually he went in, and Bomber went in, tried to explain it, and they got it eventually.
Did he fit into the cockpit?
I think he might have done it from outside. So, and then sure, when we came down, then obviously the guards or whatever, the security in the car, so they came up and they saw it, and they knew straight away what was after happening. But it was funny. You wouldn't say funny afterwards, but at the time I was like, oh, where's this going? But it got plenty of coverage.
Yeah, an unusual way to finish a weekend anyway, definitely, without a doubt. David, I know you were chatting to the written media and the online journalists over the last day or two as well, but like, have you thought much about what you're going to do for next year? I know all teams are back training now at this stage. Have you had a conversation with Jack, or do you know where you are for
I
the coming year?
I spoke to Jack about a month or 6 weeks ago, and it was mainly just looked at I was going to keep playing with the club as long as we were in. I wasn't going to decide anything properly until Christmas. And that we talked to him, and I spoke to him recently. He said, look, we'll have a chat soon after the club. That was kind of where I left it. At some stage, I'm going to have to do a proper pros and cons, and see if I still can add something to the team, and if it fits in with my personal life. They're the two things. She was second child in February. There's loads of other factors apart from football that I need to consider that have to be up there in terms of priorities. So no, I haven't gone there yet or whatever. So I'm in no rush.
How do you find actually? It's funny.
On holidays anyway, so
yeah. How do you find it? Yeah, it's a funny one when you're looking at I think you're 34 now, and you're looking at some of the lads rocking into the Kerry squad, and they're 20, 21, and it's a completely different, you've a completely different outlook on life. You completely different things going on in your life than, it's basically what you were when you're around 2009 or that. But there are so many other variables that you have to take into account when you get of a certain age, when you're married, and you have kids, houses, all that kind of crack that. I think it's a lot what Lee Keegan was talking about. Was kind of still unsure about his future. He's just saying, does football become less of a priority? I'm not saying it in a bad way, but that you're forced to think about it less because you have so many other things going on in your life.
Yeah, it is. It does. No, it's hard to, because it's not like intercounty football isn't a hobby. It's a way of life more than anything. It's not like that you pick up or choose can go training or not go training or whatever. It's a real structured environment. It's very intense. Your whole world is revolving around training sessions, about performance, about all that kind of stuff. So it's very hard to say that it doesn't mean as much to you, or that you're going to focus more on other things. It's just harder to juggle everything. That's what I found, and I suppose that's the beauty about a panel. You've guys at a huge different stage of the journeys. I remember Tommy was saying to me last year, it was funny, we were doing something, and you'd listed date of births, and he was there to me. Are the lads born in 2000s getting as much of a kick out of us being born in the 80s as we are being born in the 2000s? But so I think it's just, and it's great to see different fellas coming out of college, guys in their mid-20s. Doesn't too many fellas know my age, but
can I ask you actually just before I let you go, last question, because you mentioned Tommy there. Was it you went to lift Tommy, or Tommy went to lift you in 2019?
There's no way I'd lift him.
And is that something, because we often chat about it after, was that something that was sporadic, as in that moment in time where you're thinking we'll try and get a few extra inches like Darragh O'Shea standing on the line back in that Munster final back in the day, or is it something that you talked about beforehand, or a rugby play that you'd worked on at some stage during your younger days?
Yeah, no, we both would have played rugby and Tralee, but it would have been a case of, we would have said, I'd say before, we would have said could you do this or whatever, and then I hadn't thought about it, and he just said, if I'm going to lift you here now, if this is close or whatever, and then we just turned on to ask the umpire, and he was like, I don't, like I said, are you going to go for your hat? And they said they're not. So, but
as long as you weren't shaking the goalposts, it's not too bad. I think you're not allowed to shake the goalposts from now on. But I think they haven't outlawed somebody lifting somebody else yet. So we'll see if that's a rule change that comes in over time. But David, thanks a million for joining us. Best of luck. Big weekend, obviously, against Newcastle West. I actually have a club mate of yours waiting to come in. One of the sweetest left footers there has ever been. Declan Quill is on the line to come in. So, Dave, thanks a million for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks a million. Good man. Bye-bye. Declan, how's it going?
How are you?
Good, very, very good. I moved from one Cairns O'Reilly's man to another. I didn't want to focus too much with David on the game because it's, with players don't want to get into it too much, but it must be an exciting enough time and something that's unexpected around Strandhill at the moment.
Yeah, Strand Road is looking well. It's full of blue and white flags, and all the youngsters are absolutely delighted that we're going this far into the year, and we've had a very, very good year, I suppose, in one respect. I think the management of the team deserve great credit. I know they kind of put all their eggs in one basket with the club championship this year in Kerry, and kind of maybe sacrificed the county championship a small bit in a competition we didn't win any game in. And a lot of people are looking at that saying, how is that, But the two competitions in Kerry, the club and the county championship, are fiercely contested, and our panel is kind of tight. We've a lot of younger fellas at the end of the panel that haven't a lot of experience. So I suppose the guys that are in charge of the team had to prioritise, and they did a great job of it. They went hell for leather for the club championship. They were in a very, very tough group and had a massive semi-final and went to extra time against Spa. And after that, I think the lads needed a massive break, but they had to face East Kerry in the county championship 2 weeks later. So in Kerry you have to prioritise sometimes, and they did a great job of it. And we're really looking forward to Saturday night. Now it's been a long time coming around again since 2009, but we're really looking forward to it.
Just talk to me a bit about even about 2009. You were playing back then still, so you would have played with David and Tommy and these lads. You would have been maybe a bit older at that time and probably realised that these things don't come around all the time, as I was saying to David there. But it's great to be back. It's great to be back at this stage again. No matter how it comes, it doesn't say, the history books won't say that you didn't win the county championship or whatever. So it's a big opportunity for you at the weekend.
Yeah, it is. It's massive. I suppose I played 20 years of senior football with Cairns O'Reilly's, and we won one county championship in 2002 when I was only 19, 20 years of age, and it never came around again that we won one. And you think when you win one at such a young age, you think that you're going to be successful. I was captain in 2008, and we were beaten by a last-minute penalty after a replay by Mid Kerry, which was heartbreaking. But we won 3 club championships in a row. We won 8, 9, and 10, and that time we went on to represent Kerry. We had some fantastic wins in Munster. We played Clonakilty and we played Moyle Rovers, and we had massive battles with them. And I suppose we were raging hot favourites in a way, going up to Limerick to play against Kilmurray-Ilbricken, and things had gone very well for us, But on the day, I suppose Tommy was a huge loss to us. He was Young Player of the Year in Ireland at the time. He was after winning an All-Ireland medal, and he was on a plane out to Australia to start his professional career. And David was just after coming back from Australia after maybe having a trial out there as well. And Tommy was a huge blow to us. I don't think it affected. I don't know if it affected the team preparation or anything like that, but in a way, mentally, maybe, I suppose if we had Tommy, it would have been an absolutely huge boost to us. But yeah, the game went right down to the wire. I scored a goal towards the end, a fisted goal, and both umpires gave the goal, but the referee went in and he asked him, "Are you sure that wasn't in the square?" for some bizarre reason. And the referee ended up disallowing the goal. We were arguing with the referee. He left the free be taken quickly, and Kilmurray-Ilbricken went down and got the winning score. And it was heartbreaking after losing the county final the year before, and after losing that, we were heartbroken. Never came around for us again. So I hope the lads on Saturday night embrace the chance that they have. They're a fantastic team. They've been very unlucky over the last number of years in different competitions, but they've always held their heads high around the club and have been great ambassadors for our club. Every game they've played in, they give it 100%. So I'd be expecting nothing less from them on Saturday night, and I hope they do it. It'd be fantastic for our club.
I just saw on your WhatsApp it said "Up the Narries." What's the Narries?
Yeah, the Narries is that's the nickname of our club, I suppose, and it was used, I suppose, as a derogatory term, but we've embraced it over the last number of years, and I think that's upset a lot of people that we actually like being called the Narries now. So our main club field would have been built on where the old town dump would have been years ago. It's a fantastic field. There's great drainage there, and I suppose that's going back for how well the pitch was looked after for years. So a narry picker is someone who picks rubbish from the dump. So
Jesus,
that's
right.
you're learning something new now today. So a Nari picker was someone who went to the dump and picked through the rubbish. So that was shortened down to the Naries. And we're proud Naries now. It used to be kind of a derogatory term that other teams around Tralee like to call us Naries, but we're very proud of it. And up the Naries will be shouted on Saturday night.
It's gas because the GA is gas like that, and something that would be seen as nearly, as you said, derogatory at one stage. If you just kind of nearly embrace it, nearly people.
I think it actually annoys people that it probably annoys people that we love it. All the kids are, and even here in school, I'm at school at the moment. I'm on lunch break there, but all the kids in school would say, "Oh, the Naries are playing the weekend," and I say, "Yeah, come on, the Naries." Or when I meet the lads in the yard or on the corridor, I say, "Up the Naries now for the weekend," and that's just the way it's gone.
Yeah, geez, isn't it some opportunity for either the O'Reillys or Newcastle West at the weekend? I think Kilcoo, is it Crokes, or I think Kilmacrug Crokes actually away in the All Ireland semi final. But like that's a distance away now. Like if you like, I think Kerry and Limerick have never played in a Munster club football final before. There's only been 2 Limerick teams that have won Munster club titles. That's Thomond, which was a college, obviously, and Drumcollar won in 2008. And obviously yourselves, you don't have a Munster title, so I'm sure lads like David and Tommy and these experienced lads will realise, and even the experience of holding on the last day against the Rogue, that like this might never come around for them again. And I suppose that's why the likes of Jack and Cormac and Gavin are flying back and want to try and make most of this opportunity.
That's it. Like I said, it doesn't come around that often, and the profile of our team is kind of very young. There's we have a good cohort of senior guys, and then we have a very young cohort coming through, but they're not really, maybe a lot of them aren't ready for senior football yet. So I suppose you have to really grab the chance when you get it, like the lads like Tommy, David, our captain, Ross O'Callaghan, like Shane Brosnan, I could name a couple of more. They've been fantastic servants for this club. I play with them myself, and they're playing, 10, 15 years with the club, and they're just Barry John Keane, they've been absolute fantastic servants for the club. But, Newcastle West will be looking at this as a massive opportunity for them as well. It's very hard to pick out, who's actually the favourite. I suppose maybe we'll be made favourites because we're from Kerry, traditionally a better footballing county than Limerick. And I that's just the way it probably be looked at in the media maybe. But, they had a massive win against Clonmel. I suppose Clonmel were built up after beating Nemo. No one gave them a chance to beat Nemo, and then they did the job on Nemo, and then Newcastle West did the job on them. So it's just going to depend on what it's going to be like Saturday night. This could be played in freezing cold conditions. You don't know what way the lads are going to be after coming back. As a club, we made the decision that these guys will come home as much as we need them, because when you get to a club final, it mightn't happen next year. I mean, look what happened to Austin Stacks this year. Like, they won the county final, beat us in the county final last year, and got relegated this year. I mean, who could have foretold that? So when you're in a championship final, you have to come home. You have to have your best team going out every day. It went down to the wire against Temple. No, it went down to the last kick of the game nearly. We got through a very tight game against Rogue from Ennis, and that went down to the last kick of the game as well nearly. So this time of year, it's going to be very tight. You need every single fella. Gavin's coming from New York. The 2 boys are coming from Dubai. Cormac's teaching over in Dubai. He's my next door neighbour at home, and I know his mother is delighted he's coming home for all the games, because I know she misses him dearly. But she's delighted we're still in the competition. But it's fantastic commitment. I suppose these guys have to look for time off work in their jobs, and Gavin's only gone to New York the last couple of weeks, so the over and back and putting the body through that and everything. But look, this might never come around for those guys again, so they have to grab the chance when they get it. And I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll put the best foot forward on Saturday night.
Without a doubt, yeah. Can I just ask you about your involvement with the Kerry ladies, Declan? You had a fantastic year this year, all the way to the All-Ireland final. How do you reflect back on the year? You probably shattered a few glass ceilings along the way. Obviously disappointing in the final, but a big achievement to get there. And that's not saying it's any type of moral victory or anything like that. Yeah. But it would have been seen as left field if you were to predict that Kerry would make it all the way to the All-Ireland final this year. Yeah,
definitely. And I suppose, look, we were hopeful to come out of Division 2. That was the big thing, and we had a cracking game in Croke Park against Armagh in the final of Division 2, and we got out of there, and we're going to play in Division 1 this year, which is going to be a massive help to our girls. I suppose reflecting back on the year, the final was disappointing. The scoreline in the end was very disappointing, really, for us. But we played fabulous football this year. We played absolutely beautiful football in all our games. We played lovely attacking style football. We put up big scores. I think the girls really enjoyed the year of football. It was heartbreaking at the end, but it's going to stand to us in the long run. It was a massive experience for those girls. I suppose as a manager myself, running out to Croke Park, and myself and Dara running out to Croke Park as managers, like the noise that hit us coming out to Croke Park, it was just like, whoa, how are we going to do the warm up here? How are we going to actually be heard? So it was really, everything was new for us, and I experienced that as a player with Kerry, but as a manager, it's a different perspective. Like, how are you going to get your voice across, and how are we going to be heard here today? But Meath had that experience over us, and they played brilliantly on the day too, and you couldn't fault them. But look, we were recognised with 5 All-Stars there two weekends ago. And that was a huge achievement by our girls. I think it's the first time Kerry have got that many since 1993. And it's just a testament to the girls and how the kind of football we played this year. And we're really looking forward to Division 1 starting in January, and getting right good games up and down the country. It's gone back to a 7-8 team Division 1, so you'll have 7 games, which is going to be a fantastic experience for us. And really looking forward to the new year. And it'd be lovely to go one step further, but there's massive teams out there. Dublin are going to come again. That Meath are never going to go away, and like Cork, Galway, Mayo, they're all going to be strong. The thing about ladies football, there's no bad team in it. We did humdinger of a game against Armagh in the quarterfinal this year above an Offaly, and that could have gone either way. And they're they're a Division 2 team like we were, and they would be as good as any team in the country as well. So in ladies football, it's really tight. It's high competitive stuff, and you got to be ready every day when you go out.
Is there a sense of even more of an opportunity for next year? Obviously, Meath, not writing Meath off, far from it, but they have obviously lost. They've obviously lost a couple of key players, and there's a whole new backroom team coming in there. Mm-hmm. Like I'd imagine, there's a lot of teams just ready, Dubs included. I know Shane Ronan and Cork is probably thinking the same, and there's probably there's a lot of teams just ready to step up there, and it's as open as it's ever been, I'd say, going into 2023.
Yeah, it is. And I suppose, look, Meath have lost a few players, and I suppose we're unsure whether they're going to come back and play or not, or what way their situation with their contracts are. So I suppose we won't know that till later on in the year. Are they going to have these girls back, or are they gone permanently, or what way it's going to happen? I suppose look at Mayo. They surprised an awful lot of people last year, beating Cork in the quarterfinal and playing brilliant football, and put it up to us for a long time in the semi-final. So any team, like I said, or any day you go out, you have to be prepared. And if you're not prepared, you'll be turned over fairly easily. So there's no guarantee we're going to get back to an All-Ireland final this year. It's not going to be as easy as that. There's no guarantee. I couldn't tell you right now who'll win the All-Ireland ladies next year. And you couldn't even bring it down to 2.
You'd be a brave man, because it's very, very difficult to predict or how things. There's so many variables before you even start.
Yeah. So look, it's brilliant. That's and it's very interesting. That's the thing about it. It's fiercely competitive, and it's fiercely interesting as well. And I suppose, look, the men's thing had gone very stale for a while, and you're predicting maybe Dublin, Mayo, Kerry nearly all the time, and then Tyrone came up with All-Ireland out of nowhere. Now Galway seem to be back, and other teams are starting to build again. So the men's side of it is getting really interesting again. But, of the 12 teams in the senior ladies competition, it's very, very hard every year to pick a winner out of it.
Yeah, without a doubt, yeah. Can I just ask you, you brought up the All-Stars there. There was a bit of controversy about certain players being excluded. Like, I don't know, I don't think it's too far for me to say that, like, Vicky Wall would have been one of the players that you would have focused most on, would say, or, a lot of attention on. Do you think someone like her was particularly hard done by? And that's not to say who should be in and who should be out, but there was a good bit of controversy around the selection.
There was. I saw a bit of it on social media. All right. I don't know who. I don't even know who picks these things, to be honest. Was Vicky hard done by? I suppose if you're looking at Meath's main players over the year, she was probably one of them. I know she got put off in 3 games. Did that come against her? Maybe 3 yellow cards in 3 games. I don't know. I don't know how they actually look at it really. Was it because she went to Australia? Was that a factor that they said, look, she's gone now, we're not giving her an All-Star? I don't really know. Was she hard done by? I think she probably was, yeah. But look, we'd have 1 or 2 girls that we felt were fairly hard done by too. But you can't get them all in the team. We had an inspirational captain this year in Anna Galvin, who led that team all year long, who was brilliant in our league final and brilliant for us all year. And I thought Anna was fairly hard done by, but you can't get everyone, and you can't. It's like the men's selection. Kerry would be very disappointed, maybe not getting Tom Sullivan into the team, And that's just the way it goes. And look, they're individual awards. In the end of the day, I'm sure all our girls would have gladly handed over their All-Star if they were handed back an All-Ireland medal. That's the kind of way. But look, they're the selection committees are there for a reason. They have to make their choices, and they did that. We were very happy, and we were delighted with our 5, and that's all we can focus on really is ourselves. And at the end of the day, like I said, that's just an individual award, and we'll drive on and maybe try and get 6 or 7 extra.
As you say, it would be good to know who actually selects these things, though, because it seems to be quite secretive. But that's another topic completely.
I'm sure there's some people out there that do know, but I don't get into that kind of side of it,
Can I just ask you, there's obviously 2 Kerry teams involved in the intermediate and in the junior at the weekend. And just look at the junior briefly. It's Fossa are coming up against Kilmurray from Cork. I'd imagine as an inside forward in your day with a lovely left peg, you must take a great joy watching David Clifford.
He's phenomenal. I just love watching him kick the ball. I think he's one of the best strikers of a ball I've ever seen, and just he's an animal of a corner forward. I think the 2 best strikers of a ball I've ever seen, and this is being quite honest about it. And I think number 1 is our fullback, Kaylee Cronin. If you've seen her playing and kicking the ball, and I see her regularly, obviously at training, she's a sweet left leg, and it just seems to be a left-legged thing. I think maybe the left-leggers are maybe a little bit more naturally talented, are we?
Unlike most left-footers, David actually has a right foot as well.
Oh yeah. Don't go there now. Got enough slagging it out now over my career not having a right foot, but anyway. But yeah, he's phenomenal. The thing about David is, look, you can put the ball into him anyway. I've seen it in the county final. One went in along the ground. Picked it up, rolled 2 or 3 times like an army roll, turned around, put the ball over the bar. Next one went over his head. Jeez, he went up into the sky and caught it, came down, put it over the bar. He's multi-talented. You can put the ball into him anyway. He must be a dream to be kicking the ball into, And he's not afraid in a hard work. The amount of hard runs he makes in games, like he doesn't just stand in the corner forward position. He comes out looking, he's over and back looking for a ball. He's phenomenal, and look, we're so proud of him and so happy to have him as a Kerry footballer. And I wouldn't be like to be the Kilmurray fellas facing him at the weekend. He's an animal. He's a hard man to stop. But look, if you're going to beat Foster, they know they're going to have to stop him and Paddy.
Just on David as well. Have you ever seen a player deal with hype as well as he has? Like, there's been a lot of players hyped down through the years. I'm probably talking in hurling, maybe someone like Joe Canning, who dealt with it very well. But David just came in seamlessly, 18-year-old in, first year an All-Star. Remember the day up in Clonus against Monaghan when you were really struggling, and he pulls it out of fire. And he's just been able to, it's not even keep it consistent. It's getting higher, it seems, the whole time, gradually higher and higher. He's unbelievable. And
look, a lot of people might have seen some of the scores he kicked in the county championship this year. I mean, they were phenomenal. Like, there were some of the scores in all the rounds, not just the final. They were just phenomenal acts of accuracy. They were unbelievable. And I remember he was Kerry captain a few years ago, and he took that all in his stride. People were wondering, is he too young? I remember making the point. I think it was on Radio Kerry one evening, and I just made the point. This guy, it's going to be water off the duck's back. Like, for him, there's so much expectation on him since he was very young, since he was playing with the SEM in the Hogan Cup and playing Kerry Minor and all that. So he's very used to it. He's a very ordinary, down-to-earth guy. We were doing the crossover camp there that Kieran Donaghy runs there last Easter. We were coaching at that, and David was there a couple of days, and the time he spent with the kids and showing them how to kick the ball and being an ordinary coach at it and taking photos and autographs, and he's just phenomenal. I'd say the amount of autographs that lad has signed in the last couple of years have been just phenomenal. And anytime I see him with the kids, and it's just, no problem. Anything you ask him to do, it seems to be very little problem, and that's a hard thing to do all the time. It's hard when you get beat. You have to stand there in the field and sign autographs. It's a hard thing when you're winning. You're surrounded by kids. You want maybe to go over and celebrate with your teammates, and you're surrounded by kids everywhere, and you have to sign autographs to them. You don't want to look ignorant or big-headed. I don't think anyone could say anything bad about him, other than that he's been a phenomenal ambassador for Gaelic football and for our county as well.
Just the last one, because I'm going to just get a verdict on Saturday's game, because I think I can hear a bell in the background. It's telling you to go to a class. try and take the heart out of it a small bit, and we go with the head. How do you think Saturday night will go against Newcastle West?
I think like I said, they shocked everyone by beating Clonmel, so that's going to give them a massive boost. Can they reproduce that again? Like we see, like with Clonmel, I think it's very hard to do it. Maybe this time of year, twice in a row. I think our lads were a bit rusty the last day against Éire Óg. 5 weeks without a game, lads missing and stuff like that away. And obviously, like we've covered it, working and things like that. But I think we'll be good enough on the day. I think our lads realise that this is a massive opportunity for them to, add a huge medal to their collection. And it might be the last time that some of these guys maybe tag out for our club as well. So I think they'll give it everything. And I think heart and head are going with Kearns O'Reilly's on the night. And I just hope we're celebrating Saturday night, and just wish both teams well. And just hopefully the blue and white will come through in the end.
I was sure you were going to finish with up the Narries.
We'll leave that till Saturday night, hopefully.
Thanks a million for joining us,
All
Declan.
right.
Really appreciate it. Good man.
Thank you.
Thanks a million.
No bother.
Bye-bye. So that was great to have Declan Quill there. He obviously had a great run with the Kerry ladies earlier on this year. We've lots of other little bits and pieces to get through before we finish off today's show. Just thought it was interesting as well, just talking about the Ballygunner-Ballyhale game. Actually put up a poll earlier on, and 80% of people say that the date should be changed for that game. So it seems to be kind of a universal opinion. People will still go to it, particularly the fans involved with both teams, but it definitely takes a lot of the casuals and neutrals out of it. And just on Colin Fennelly's words, he just said he wasn't that happy with Barry Coughlin's winning speech after the club final in February. This is what Coughlin said. He just said, "And to Ballyhale, I'm not going to be patronising with you. You're going to go down as the best club team ever. Like, literally, we robbed it today. I suppose you've done that to other teams, so I suppose it goes round, it comes round. But I mean that with most respect. You're on the road a long time, and hopefully we'll see you again next year if you do get out again." And Colin Fennelly just said, in reference to that, and it's just funny, we've talked about in this show regularly about how people get motivation from different things and different people and the smallest things. But Fennelly said in the wake of their Leinster final win over Kilmacud last weekend, he just said, their speech at the end of the game, it's not something you want to hear. You want that little bit of respect. But look, we'll keep our heads down. We'll do what we can do over the next 2 weeks. I'm sure they'll do the same. Whoever comes out on top will come out on top. And that's it. You have to take hurling away. It is a face value. If you're not good enough today, you won't win it. And that's it. And he just said, the sore point was we lost, and that was it. You have to accept it. We always showed teams respect, and you just expect it back, but that's completely separate. It's not something you like to hear, but we lost, and that's the end of it. I think added spice to that, and Fennelly potentially having a go at Coughlin, is that they're probably going to end up marking each other next Sunday. So there's going to be no getting away from it. And it adds another kind of layer of intrigue to that game as well. Just a couple of other bits of news as well. There are a couple of more absentees from the Kilkenny panel for next year. So along with Mikey Carey and Conor Brown, who are both gone travelling, Richie Lahey and James Maher have also opted out for 2023. I believe they're going travelling as well. So before Derek Ling starts, he's going to be without 4 faces, particularly like the 2 lads that started the All-Ireland final last year. Lahey and Maher have maybe only been bit part players, but they've still come in games and made a big difference. So he's going to be out without the 4 of them. Another point of information there as well, Limerick's spending under inter-county teams for 2022 was 2.3 million. So there was quite a bit made of Limerick spending being Galway spending being 2 million. And if you look at it, you had a senior team that got to an All-Ireland semi-final. You have a senior hurling team that got to you have a senior football team that got to an All-Ireland final. You have a senior hurling team that got to an All-Ireland semi-final. Their minors were obviously really competitive and at those latter stages. So they probably went into the championship a lot further across all codes than Limerick did. Like, Limerick obviously got to the Munster final in football, were beaten the next time out. The hurlers obviously went the whole way till the middle of July and won the All-Ireland again for the 3rd time in a row. But it's just interesting. Their figure is, a lot bigger than, I think Meath's inter-county spending was 1 million in 2022. So 2.3 million is they're pretty eye-watering amounts of money. Just to go back to some club games as well, we still have plenty of different bits and pieces of club games to go through. We obviously talked about Fossa and Kilmurray in that Munster Junior final. So it's going to be interesting. Castlemahan was it Kilcoo, I think it was a sellout the last day when they beat Fiona Castlemahan. They're playing in Mallow, part of a doubleheader with Rathmore and the Piershig. Fossa will definitely be favoured to come through that game. They had a really comprehensive win the last day after having a tough time of it in Kerry, with a lot of really, really competitive games, particularly that county final when it took a couple of moments of brilliance to win. Kilmurray beat Third of Sarsfields 2-11 to 12 points in the Munster semi-final. So the Farm and the Cliffords and a couple of other marquee players that they have would definitely suggest a Fossa win there. And that's the curtain raiser too, Rathmore and the Piershig. So the Piershig won the double last week in Limerick. They won the intermediate hurling title to go with their senior hurling title. And they're coming up against the Rathmore side who beat Canturk and beat them well in the semi-final, ended up 117 to 2-6, whereas the Piershig and Ballina was 6 points to 1-3 at half time. Then the Piershig went on and won 4-2 on penalties. So even though Rathmore are going to be missing Paul Murphy, you would still say, you still say they're strong favourites coming into that game. So that's the two lower tier Munster finals. Obviously, we didn't talk too much about Newcastle West. They had a great win the last day. They're playing against Kilkerrin-Clonberne. I actually think Newcastle West might get the job done on Saturday night. They're really, really good side. And I like the last day in the commercials game it was a lot of players maybe who were kept quiet in the county final before that. Mike McMahon was the main man in the county final, the big full forward, 6'5", trains with Pow Dwyer, the Irish strongman. Strongest man in Ireland for the last 5 years, I think. And you'd know by Mike looking at him that he definitely does plenty of tire flips. And actually, a picture of him was in the paper the week before last of him pulling a tractor across the yard. But he was actually quiet the last day. And it was Cian Sheehan, who we'd all know from his days with Limerick. He's an all-star nominee this year. He was brilliant for Newcastle West the last day. And even Ian Corbett was very influential as well. So Newcastle West, because of Limerick's probably lack of success at this level, are probably coming in under the radar. But if you're weighing up, beating Clonmel Commercials, who beat Nemo well, beating them in the semi-final after extra time was a huge win. Whereas the Rattleys were probably holding on against their Oaks. So probably going to go for Newcastle West in that one. Obviously some other big games as well. The Ulster Senior Football Final. So it's Kilcoo against Glen. Shane had the coaching clinic earlier on the year. It was Conor Gilligan and Malachy O'Rourke were both there. They're coming up against each other on the sideline now. And there's another manager in the midst as well. So Kilcoo's Conor Laverty is obviously down manager as well. So very interesting. I'd love to know what his week is like at the moment. Tried to balance getting his body right for playing and captaining Kilcoo and also managing down. So I'd say he's gone every night of the week at the moment, trying to get down into pre-season, get them back to something like the form of a couple of years ago. But he's juggling the two of them there. And it's kind of is a bit of I wouldn't know if you'd say it's a grudge match, but it's a really highly anticipated game. Last year's game finished 111 to 11 points after extra time. And you'd have to say it was probably a mistake that was capitalised on by Kilcoo, a short kick out, and it ended up they ended up turning it over, ended up in the back of the net. It was one of the Johnsons, I can't remember his name, it ended up getting that crucial goal, and Kilcoo went all the way to All-Ireland success again. So I just fly through that game last year actually really, really quickly. So I said it was 111 to 11 points after extra time. So just going through some of the notes on it, Kilcoo were eventually able to kind of shake off a Glen team with an opportunistic goal from Jerome Johnson. It was just before the break of half time in extra time. So while this is a really, intriguing game and everybody wanted to see probably Kilcoo against Glen, it's probably not going to be the most appetizing game on the eye. Last year would definitely suggest that anyway, and some of Kilcoo's games in particular would suggest that. So last year it was 4 points apiece at the break with just 3 points scored from play. And it was both teams were kind of setting up defensively and placing more stock and trying to force a mistake or a turnover and then kind of counter-attack. And the moment I said, which was the game-changing moment, so Glen goalkeeper Conlon Bradley hit short kick out to his fullback Ryan Dugan, and Kilcoo attacker Paul Devlin stole in, robbed the ball. He passed to Jerome Johnson, who placed the shot to the roof of net, and that was essentially the difference. So there was a couple of quotes from Aidan Brannigan, he's 39, but he's still going strong. So ahead of the down semi-final meeting with Clonduff during the summer, the Magpies were down on numbers. Brannigan had retired. He was gone. He was finished after, it's not after Patrick's Day, obviously, but after their All-Ireland final win. He finished, he hung up the boots, reckoned he was probably too long in the tooth to maybe achieved everything he wanted to. But when they played Clonduff during the summer, the Magpies were down on numbers, and Conor Gilligan persuaded him to rejoin their training. And as is often the case, once you get back in training, he was coaxed to come back again. But it just took some quotes here from me speaking to the media during the week. I only came back one game before the final of the league. We had 5 children and 1 on the way, so our house was pretty busy. I was just around at training one night with the wee boys, training the younger teams, and seniors were on after. They were low in numbers coming up to the Clonduff game, so I stepped in, and once you go one night, you're back in. I played centre half back. It was good to get back in though. I was going to the games and was agitated watching them. It's not easy watching them when you're used to playing all the time. I was keeping myself in good enough shape, and I was still running 2 or 3 nights a week, so I was grand that way. He just said, Conor Gilligan said, we're low this week, 6 or 7 of the thirds had to play. Can you step in? And he surely did step in, and he's still there now. So just the run of the 2 teams to the final. So Kilcoo beat Enniskillen and Gales. Kilcoo have been pushed really hard and down this year, but some of their best stuff has been recently. So they were really good against Enniskillen and Gales, particularly in that first half. Really powerful first half performance. They ended up winning 3-14 to 1-9, even though Enniskillen probably came back at them at the end. Glen had a real arm wrestle with Carrigan in their semi-final. So it was a real kind of tense kind of mid-Ulster derby game. And as they did against Errol Kieran, the Glen probably just came good at the end. Danny Talon, very, very good again. And Emmett Bradley, Conor Glass, obviously middle of the field too. As I said, this is an intriguing game. It's probably not going to be the best game on the eyes, but it will be a real arm wrestle of a game with, you know, massive intensity, massive hits, massive premium on possession, and turnovers would be huge. Tough kind of to predict that. I think Kilcoo might just squeak through again, but the Glen obviously bring the hurt of last year, and maybe knowing that it could have been them potentially going all the way to an All-Ireland final had they got over Kilcoo last. But I think Kilcoo might just get through there. In the Ulster Intermediate final, it's Galbally-Pierces against Clonduff. And then in hurling, the Leinster Intermediate final. So this is such a novel pair. You have Bray Emmets from Wicklow coming up against Trim from Meath, and you have a Christy Ring Cup team, which is the 3rd tier hurling, coming up against the Nicky Rackard Cup team, which is the 4th tier hurling if you're talking about them in county terms. So it's going to be really, really fascinating. Just go through a couple of quick comments while we're here. Richard Hogan just said, wouldn't be too worried about losing the 4 KK lads. That's Brown, Carey, Lahi Amar. Hoping Peter McDonald could step up, as he had a great finish to his season. George O'Connor is another name to look out for, maybe for under 20. Richard Hogan just says, imagine Will O'Donoghue playing football for the Piercy. By all accounts, anytime I've spoken to anybody that was involved in Limerick academies and minors and 21s, Will was a powerful footballer, as you can see probably from his hurling exploits. So A. Sully just says, Richard Hogan, Billy Drennan be close to starting this year. He's still under 20. He's still under 20 in 2023. So Derek was obviously involved with them, and it'd be interesting to see whether he leaves them to under 20 and to maybe mature a bit more, or whether he calls them all straight up. That's going to be fascinating to see. Nulty Jack just said, hard to Cairns have some Kerry players and former. They have to start favourites. Beating Clonmel was great. Doesn't mean they will win. Yeah, and that's probably what Declan Quill was saying. You know, they are a Kerry team at the end of the day, and well high up outside of Nemo, Kerry teams have been so strong on that Munster Club Roll of Honour as well. So he reckons Cairns by 4. Richard Hogan just replying about the question about Billy Drennan. Not sure about Billy. Would have thought he would need to have gotten Galway closer to county final than they did. And he just says Ian Byrne might be somebody who could step up. We'll be interested to see how many KKR players can get into Fitzgibbon Cup teams. It's gas. I was going down through the list of Fitzgibbon panels, and unfortunately, from an Offaly point of view, we're probably short of players. I have 3 of my own clubmates involved with LIT. I'm not sure what the name of the college is now, but the old Limerick Institute of Technology. But we're really short outside of probably Killian Sampson in UL. We wouldn't have many Offaly lads involved, and that's so worrying for what's coming, because the Limerick team that's there now was basically Mary I against UL in a famous Fitzgibbon Cup game where there was the guts of about 12 or 13 Limerick lads playing, including Gerard Hegarty, who was playing wing back actually, Tom Morrissey, and so many other lads. I think Sean Finn might have been playing as well. So the Fitzgibbon is such a sign of what's coming in your county as well. Andrew Sullivan just asked there about Harry Shine. Be interesting to see. It's going to be fascinating to see whether Derek calls up these lads or whether he leads them to 20s, or whether they're in with the seniors and then go back to the 20s. But just to go back to a couple of the games there, Bray Emmets against Trim, as I said, really, really fascinating game. Bray Emmets is path to the final. They beat Glenealy after a replay in Wicklow. They beat Lazarians of Abbey Leaks by a point in their quarter final, then beat Nave Barrow from Dublin. Very comprehensively, it was double scores in that semi-final, 14 points to 7. Trim had a couple of great wins. They beat Danesfort by a point down in Kilkenny, or I think Danesfort were 1-20 to win that game. And then they beat Tullamore, who were the Offaly Senior B champions, 121 to 1-9. And all of Tullamore's 1-9 came from place ball. So that was, really, really comprehensive stuff, you'd have to say, from a Trim point of view. Just a couple of notes on Bray. So when a lot of the current senior players started playing out with Bray, Bray was actually, they were junior. Their first adult team was actually a junior. And John Henderson Senior, who finished up with Kilkenny, I think after Tip beat them in the 1991 All-Ireland final, he was a big driver to helping to turn things around an awful lot. So they started playing in the Dublin League from under 8 up, and the whole thing started to grow and spiral. And there's actually a good few parallels between Naas and Bray. Naas even played the Dublin Championship for a while, and might still do, and have definitely been involved in the Kilkenny Championship as well. But John Henderson Senior just said, one of my big things was to play matches everywhere and anywhere against anyone. We had many All-Ireland tournaments on the eve of the All-Ireland. We travelled to play the likes of Blackrock and Durrasog and got the belief that we were every bit as good as them. We got to train down and went to a Munster senior hurling game after. So something you see a lot of clubs kind of doing now, going down playing a game, maybe going to a big championship game after, and hopefully you're fostering that love of hurling within them. And then his son John Henderson Jr. is centre back, and he was man of the match in the county final. Like, I played with him when he was at Wicklow. He's a fine player, really, really skilled player, tough player as well. And he just said that they got a few baptisms of fire when they came up senior. They were playing the likes of Glenealy and Carnew, and he said for the first 3 or 4 years that he was playing senior, we were getting absolutely walloped, and a lot of teams took no mercy on us. But they're the ones dishing out a lot of the beatings now. I think they've won 7 titles in the last 9 years in Wicklow, and they'll fancy themselves coming into this weekend. Trim will too. It's a massive opportunity for the two of them. So Trim are second on the Mead Roll of Honour with 28 county titles, one behind Kilmessan. Very kind of young, fit outfit managed by Jimmy Canty. The main players, James Torr, former Mead star, obviously I think he was a dual star at one stage. He's at number 6. He's captain as well. By all accounts, he's undoubtedly their key player. Charlie Ennis was the key man. He's the keeper. He pulled off some vital saves in the latter stages of the Mead Senior Hurling Championship, particularly when they dethroned Kildalkey in the semi-final. He was recently crowned Mead Hurler of the Year as well. Jimmy Murray's another one, very, very good on frees. Ger Duan, very quick as well at full back, and looks to try and play in front. So it'll be interesting to see. He's probably going to pick up Christy Morehouse, who's Bray's main man up front. So it'll be interesting to see. Christy's very, 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 very cute player. Has a lovely dummy hand pass as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Ger Duan goes on him. And Alan Douglas is a full forward. He'd drop deep at times for the ball, more of a link man maybe, but will go back inside and can win ball too. Trim have had a really busy time of it over the last, what are we talking, the last year, I'd say. So Trim were beaten in the All-Ireland Intermediate Football Final by Steelstown, Brian Oakes, earlier in this year. Remember that famous speech by the Steelstown captain? His name escapes me. Neil Forrester. He made a brilliant speech. It was like a WWF promo almost, but it was brilliant speech. And they've been on the go pretty much non-stop for the last 2 years between the two codes. But the club seems to make it work really well, and two managements obviously go over and back between each other an awful lot. And Trim are absolutely dominating Mead at the moment. So last weekend they won the under 21, having won the under 13, under 15, minor and senior before that. And senior star Joey Cole, I believe, was very, very good the last day. It's a huge opportunity for the two of them here. The winners will play Mona Lean in an All-Ireland semi-final. I think Bray might just about do it. I haven't looked at the odds, but I'd say Trim are probably favourites, but I think Bray might just about do it. A couple of other quick comments in there. Andrew Sullivan just says Kieran Burke and Mark Troyer with Mary I think, but yes, not a lot of Offaly lads in the panels. That's just with reference to how many guys from different counties are involved at third level, because it is a great sign of where your county is going to be. Maybe not at this moment in time, but in a couple of years. Richard Hogan says Richard's a big farm man because he's a big race man, and he just says Trim have a solid bank of farm, would run Monaleen close if they won. They have the Danesford farm is very, very impressive, and obviously Holden Tullamore is very, very impressive too. And Richard just says that Offaly minor team, we're only under 17. Some of those lads would take another couple of years to appear on Fitz panels. They surely would. Richard's always talking about Horswood as well, and saying Moulds Fettered would be neighbours down on that Hook Peninsula. And Horswood are going playing this weekend in the Leinster Junior final. So they're coming up against Commercials of Dublin. So Commercials beat the Black and Whites of Kilkenny. So Kilkenny teams have generally been dominant at junior and intermediate level since the competitions were introduced, so that was a big win for them. Horswood had a good win over the Louth senior champion St. Feckin's 1-8 to 1-4. So just Horswood is an interesting one because they earned successive promotions in Wexford. So they won the junior last year, won intermediate A this year, and they're one of the few teams probably that has defied that layoff from the split season, maybe outside of Ballygunner. So they won their final championship games in swelter and heat. And now months later they're playing in what probably could only be described as wintry, kind of miserable enough dour kind of conditions. Declan Murphy's a huge player for them at midfield. They beat Oulart in a semi-final thriller, and then they looked beating all ends up against Mellows in that Wexford Intermediate A final before snatching the title from underneath their noses. Key players are probably captain Shane O'Hanlon, Conor Foley, Jack Keogh and Sean Nolan are key in attack. They beat Aero Corraquill before that, the Kildare champions, who had beaten Shamrocks, who were the Leinster Junior finalists last weekend. So they bring in a lot of really good form into it. An interesting one, Barry Hearn, who plays in defence for Horswood. So if the Black and Whites had won, if they weren't beaten by Commercials, he would have been playing against his brother-in-law. But obviously Commercials denied that unique occasion. Just a couple of little bits on Commercials. So Dermot O'Dooling is one of their key players, the Dublin under-20 player. He scored 1-8 for Coloshdone in their Leinster Schools loss to Good Counsel last week. Éanna O'Neill, he was the star performer in defence in the Dublin County final. So he's likely to be given the task of minding one of Horswood's potent attackers, probably either Foley, Keogh or Sean Nolan. So that's going to be an intriguing game there. And the winners will play last year's All-Ireland finalist Ballygiblin. So again, it's probably like Newcastle West and Cairns O'Reilly's. It's a big opportunity now. They're probably going to be fit. They're probably going to be underdogs if they do get through, but that'll matter little. And on both of those games, actually, the two Leinster finals, intermediate and junior, they both played. Intermediate definitely play next week anyway. Bray or Trim will play Monaleen. I don't like the week turnover, to be honest with you. I don't like that turnaround for, if you're going to win the Leinster title, to me, you want to celebrate it for about 3 or 4 days and really soak it up and even enjoy it over Christmas, whereas they're going to have to get ready for a game next week. But I'm sure that's a bridge they'll cross. That's a bridge they'll cross if they come to it. And just as a couple of big ladies' games at the weekend, the ladies' football senior All-Ireland club final is Dunamine against Kilkerrin-Clonberne. So that's been played in Crow Park. Kilkerrin-Clonberne are chasing back-to-back titles. So exactly 16 years to the day after inspiring Dunamine to their maiden All-Ireland title, Katrina McConnell, she tied the knot and she partied hard, obviously, and then she kicked 7 points in the semi-final to book their place there. So it'll be interesting to see what we talked about. They often talk about wedding hangover. She definitely didn't have it, nor did Shane Beston, nor did Stacey Keogh for Oulart a couple of years ago as well. So it's going to be fascinating to see if Dunamine can put up to Kilkerrin-Clonberne. But Kilkerrin-Clonberne really took care of Ballymacarbry with the minimum of fuss in the All-Ireland semi-final. So I think they might get the job done again. In the intermediate final, it's Mullinahone against Longford Slashers. So this is a really interesting one. So Mullinahone were beaten in the junior All-Ireland final last year and are up in intermediate now. So Denise Gall is actually playing for Mullinahone. So Mullinahone is in Tip, and generally Tip and Kilkenny don't really get on or particularly like each other in GA terms. But she could go from winning All Ireland with Kilkenny this year to winning a ladies football intermediate final with a Tipperary club, which would be really, really interesting. So Gall's Camogie Club is Wine Gap. That's just down the road, and intriguingly, it's across the Tipperary, just across the Tipperary Kilkenny border. So she just said, she was quoted a while back, she just said, there are a few girls in the same boat. Wine Gap will be close to us, so there's a few girls that play camogie there, but they wouldn't have a football team, so they come over to Mullinahone. Sorry, that was actually that was actually one of the Mullinahone girls was saying. So they get the best of both worlds. And it's funny kind of because you're actually taking in not alone from another club or another county, but you're actually taking in from another province as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that game goes. In the junior final then, it's Nave Avon against Salthill-Knocknacarra, and a couple of big camogie games. I know that Richard Hogan and Andrew Sullivan were chatting in the chat there in the commenting about the camogie semi-finals. They're going to be fascinating. So Sarsfield's up against St. Vincent's. That's been played in my own club in St. Brendan's Park in Burr. So Sarsfields are the defending champions. They beat Oulart in last year's final, while St. Vincent's, who have former Kilkenny star Taggy Fogarty involved as coach, they dethroned Oulart in a really tight Leinster final. So on a form line through Oulart obviously beat Sarsfields the year before in the All-Ireland final. There's probably not going to be much between these two, but I probably would just about favour Sarsfields. On the other side then you have Lougheil Shamrocks against Drummond-Inch. So Lougheil dethroned Lougheil in the Ulster final. Lougheil have been, it's probably funny in a way that they've been dominating hurling and camogie at senior level, and both of their teams were dethroned in recent weeks by Antrim sides, Dunloy in the hurling and Lougheil in the camogie. Drummond-Inch have been knocking thereabouts and have won a couple of Munsters. Really, to me, the form of Lougheil beating Slaughtneil is pretty impressive. So I'm finding it hard to pick a winner in that one. And in the camogie intermediate semi-finals, it's Castlegar against James Stevens of Kilkenny, Clonduff against Clonmorris of Kerry, who've been, I think, were in the junior final a couple of years ago. And in the junior semi-finals then, you have St. Dominic's against Knockana, and you have Nabridini Oga against Adair. So that's all. And I was by myself talking there for a long time, I know. So thanks a million for staying tuned with us. Richard Hogan just says as well, Canis Hickey is also involved with St. Vincent's. I should have mentioned it obviously throughout the show as well. For any of your Christmas goodies, if you want to fill any of the stockings, right like that, go to ourstore.ie. T-shirts for every county, lots of different items. You can get things, phone covers, mugs, also all the items that great stocking fillers for any GA fan in your life or for yourself. I've already bought a couple of things myself as well. And just lastly, before we go, comment here from ML89 just says, in intermediate All-Ireland semi-final in camogie this weekend, James Stevens fullback Emma Gaffney is from Crockwell and played with a few of the Castlegar girls with Galway before moving down. That's fascinating. The GA is an amazing one like that. And there was a comment in earlier, I don't want them to think I'm not listening to him, from Zed Lepelin, and he just says, anything to be said about Kilruane clinching another county title in football, first one since the 70s, bulk of the senior hurling panel involved. I saw Seamus Hennessy was involved, and Aaron Morgan was centre back for them, I think, as well. So it's been some year for the McDonoughs, and I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll enjoy it over the winter, no doubt. But that's all for the Thursday show. Shane will be back on Monday again. But thanks a million for tuning in with us, folks. Loads of great GA action over the weekend. Stay tuned, and we'll be back on Monday to review all the action once again. Thanks a million, folks.